So I have spent a lot of time collecting my thoughts on what to say in this last video. The thing that is most striking is the game is essentially broken. I want to discuss the most consistent issues that I observed through the last 3 campaigns, which are: Number 1. The strategic AI does not know how to respond to an invasion and leaves its strategic positions extremely vulnerable. It also seemingly will go to war with a player at random. It does not respond to its allies being attacked either. And if we look at games that were like back in the 90s, like Command and Conquer, the AI was pretty protective of whatever harvesting units that were out there, as opposed to From the Depths, which is a quote-unquote more modern game. I mean, we're talking about something that's kind of a fairly basic thing that was in a game, like 20, 30 years ago, I forget, but point is that it was there, and I don't see why we're not seeing this in From the Depths. Now we move on to number 2. Using cost as a model to balance things on. I've shown in each one of these campaigns that finding the materials to build huge fleets of tanks and massive battleships is really too easy to get. There is no real incentive right now for players to build efficient designs. You can just arm yourself with a weapon system that there is either no defense for, like a pack, or spam huge missiles, which can be difficult to defend against as well. It's like there is just no system in place to penalize the player for using expensive and extremely inefficient designs. Now we move on to number 3, broken campaign designs. To this day, there are still Scarlet Dawn airships that spawn in the sea, which has been a problem for, I'm guessing, the last 4 years. I mean, we've even seen this in Lathrix's first complete campaign of Quest for Neater. And I've also shown you guys this in my own Quest for Neater campaign, actually in both campaigns. So yeah, that's something that needs to be dealt with, and I think they either should remove those craft until they are fixed, or just fix the damn things. I mean, just do something with them, but quit letting them spawn in the fucking water. And it's not just the Scarlet Dawn. We also have the white flares and lightning hoods that have static emplacements that refuse to function. That happened in my Ashes video, and that also happened in my last campaign with the static turrets not doing anything, really. They just kind of sat there and took it. Now we move on to number 4, an extreme lack of action. I have touched on this briefly, talking about their strategic AI, but it is apparent that there is a severe deficit of action when we compare the most current campaign to the tile-based system. Having garrison units was way more fun than a handful of ships that insta-spawn the moment that you declare war on an enemy AI faction. At least then you could take a very direct route to the enemy fortresses and resource zones to avoid a majority of the fighting. At least back then you had a choice of how intense your campaign can be just by having your forces entering a garrison tile. Now we move on to number 5, which is what makes the situation more irritating is the game has been released as quote-unquote done. But when you look through the information that I provided, it is apparent that this game is far from being done. Instead, the manpower and resources seem to be squandered upon features we did not need, like all this weeb shit that I keep seeing. And some other things, like seeing how shells pass through armor and things like that. I don't feel like we really needed that kind of crap. But with every update, we seem to get more examples of wasted resources, which should have been focused on fixing the game itself and making it more enjoyable. And lastly, for number 6, I want to talk about the mainstream FWD community. The campaign is weak. Strategic AI is a farce. The idea of balancing the game around costs is pointless because materials are just too easy to come by, and making high-end weapons too easy to field. This game was released on Steam as done when in fact it is a half-baked steaming pile of garbage. The question I must ask is why there was no pushback from the mainstream community. The devs have lied to us on multiple occasions, they have paid YouTubers for good reviews, and they treat anyone who calls them out on their shit like they're an ungrateful child. If you want to see proof of this kind of stuff, you can check out my FTD Customer Relations Nightmare series, which I will provide a link for in the description of the video. So this just begs the question, why the hell do a majority of the mainstream community continue to support this garbage? Is it some kind of blind and misplaced trust? Is it cowardice? Is it apathy? I mean, we've paid our money and so far have not been delivered what was promised, and for some reason, beyond my understanding, no one seems to care. We need to remember that we are customers and we have a right to a product that was promised but never truly delivered. So with all that said, I don't see myself doing another campaign series anytime soon. This is because it feels pointless to spend hours building quality craft for the campaign that I just stomped my way through. The Thor Odin's Son is a prime example. I spent weeks on this design because I was hoping for a more vigorous defense from the last faction of the game, only to have it have a few minutes of screen time. It just does not seem worth it to me to do any more content for this computer-generated dumpster fire. The game is broken, with no real incentive on the horizon for the devs to bring it back to its former glory. Then there is the fan base who seems all too eager to drop their pants, get bent over, and fucked, all the while gleefully shouting, "Thank you, sir, may I have another?" And let's not forget the big-time FTD content creators that are nothing but mere tools and posers that blindly continue to promote this farce of a game. Right now, I'm having trouble trying to justify doing content for a game whose developers and mainstream fans who do not condemn the things that I have seen. I do not know when or if I'm going to do more content for this game. I have presented my argument and evidence to back it up. Do with this information what you will.